But this gets us to the next concept, duty. You're making the choice about how to use your freedom. What is the motive of your action? And goodwill, this is nice, but it's a very broad term. It gives us a kind of abstract form. What is the goodwill? This depends on how you understood the good, and ethics is the search for the good, so we get a bit lost. So Kant says duty. This is what we do. The motive for good action is the motive to adhere to your duty. So, what is our duty? Of course, to adhere to the moral law. Adhering to the moral law is our motivation for exercising our freedom in such a way that we fulfill our duty. Human freedom for Kant is amazing. Only humans have freedom. Only humans have reason. And we can employ these to choose what to do with our lives, to make a plan for our life, to make decisions, to have long-term goals, short-term goals. Now, what is it that guides all of this for us? And Kant says the goodwill should be the way to do so. But what exactly does this mean in daily life? And that is, use your freedom to fulfill your duty, and your duty is to the moral law. We have a moral requirement to act, and this is our reason to act. Once again, this is a complex way of saying we want to do good because doing good is a good thing to do. And the fact that it's a good thing to do is its own reason. It motivates us simply because it's a good thing, not because if you do good, then you go to heaven. Or if you do good, then you will have respect from your friends. It simply says the reward, the action, the motivation for doing good is because doing good is good. It sounds like he's not making an argument, but if you think about it, it is quite an argument. People do feel very good when they do good. You're proud of yourself if you've helped a stranger in the street, or when you do some magnificent charitable deed, you feel good because of the goodness of the feeling. And Kant is trying to tap into that. And I think to make it a bit more simple, we can compare this to traffic laws. Simply because the law says you can drive at 100 kilometers an hour doesn't give you a good reason for driving 100 kilometers an hour. The reason I stick to the speed limit when I do is for safety, not because the law says so. If the law says everyone should be driving 60, but everyone actually drives 90, it's safer for me to drive 90 and follow the flow of traffic than to be the only one doing 60 when everyone else is doing 90. That is unsafe. I'll do 90. So the rule here doesn't really give me a reason to follow the rule. Safety on the road is my reason for adhering to the laws or not adhering to the laws as they creep up. And so if someone wants to say you must follow the law because the law is the law, then I'm going to want a second argument for why I should follow the law. And that would be a moral argument. That would be politics, which we won't go into today. So traffic laws need a second argument. Adhering to our moral duty does not. And Kant's answer to this is because a rational agent would adhere to their moral duty. Our moral duty is discovered through reason, and we're reasonable agents, and so we will adhere to it. Finally, we get to the meat of the work. What are the principles of correct action? What is the moral law to which we have a duty? What do we have to do? Well, we know it's a categorical imperative. This is a description of a term. Categorical versus hypothetical. It's categorical. A hypothetical would be, if you want to achieve X, then do Y. If you want to cool down, put some ice in your drink. If you want to go to heaven, follow the 10 commandments. If you want to pass the test, study your work. Categorical says there's no hypothetical here. There's no if. You simply must. It's a command. Like when someone says, close the door. There's no if you want to do this, then I suggest you should close the door. It's simply close the door, command, there it is. It also means that it's universal because there's no conditionality to it. And an imperative is the command. And so here it is. Here is the final categorical imperative. How should we act? What should we do for Kant? We should act only in accordance with the maxim through which you can at the same time will that it become a universal law. That's a mouthful, typical Kant, so I'll just break that down, I think, in a very simple way. Can I lie to escape a bad situation? What does Kant have to say about this? Duty, goodwill, the categorical imperative. So a lie is a lie when someone expects the truth and doesn't get the truth. Therefore, a joke is not a lie because no one expects the truth if someone starts a sentence with knock knock. Literature is not a lie. Harry Potter is not just a bunch of lies. I don't expect the truth. It's literature. So if I lie to get out of trouble, it means that I want everyone to be able to lie when they get out of trouble. If it can be a universal law that you're allowed to lie to get out of trouble, then I would expect you to lie to get out of trouble when you're in trouble. If I expect you to lie, you cannot lie, because a lie depends upon the expectation of truth and not receiving truth when you expect truth. That is a lie. So if I make lying a universal rule, there is no expectation of truth, and therefore there cannot be the concept of lying. This is unreasonable. Lying is impossible. Not that it leads to bad consequences, not that it leads to a chaotic society, which it may, of course, but that it's logically impossible. You cannot will that everyone should always lie. You may as well say blah, blah, blah. Those two sentences have the same meaning, the same content, says Kant. Because we are reasonable agents, we need to be reasonable, and it's unreasonable to introduce these paradoxes and tautologies into our moral world. So what is immoral for Kant, stated differently? To make an exception for yourself, right? A rule for thee, but not for me. So I want no one to ever lie, no one should ever lie, but I lie. I feel I'm exempt from this rule, I'm special, I'm different. That is immoral, says Kant. That is how we act badly. He offers a second version of the categorical imperative. He says these are equivalent. And the second one says, act so that you use humanity, whether in your own person or in the person of any other, always at the same time as an end, never merely as a means. So don't use people. Don't use others for your goals or another goal. Respect them as an end in themselves with their own, that's Kant again, so their own rationality, their own freedom, their own dignity, their own ability to make up their choices about what they want to do with their life. Don't interfere with that. So let's do the same example. Can I lie to escape a bad situation? To give another information which will make them act in a specific way, probably a way that benefits me, and in a way which they would not have acted had I not given them the false information, is really to manipulate them. So I take away their freedom to make their own decisions, I make one for them, and I force them to act in a way I want them to act by lying to them. This is to use a person as a thing, not respecting their freedom or dignity as a person. So to lie to someone is to use them. So we cannot do that. These are equivalent, says Kant, and the first formulation is very general. All it really does is it gives us a universal rule, and the rule itself says, what is a universal rule? Well, it's a rule that you can apply universally. So he just gives us the logic. The second one gives us a bit more substance to the general form of the rule, because here we have a specific prohibition. Don't treat other people like means. Always treat others like ends in themselves. In this case, what is it to be immoral? It is to not respect others as persons worthy of respect as persons. So if you don't treat others as rational agents able to decide for themselves how to act, then you are acting immorally. And I think this makes intuitive sense. So I summarize because I know that this is rather complex, and really this last page, the summary page, if you have this, you have what you need. It's very good. Only the goodwill is good in itself. Any other good can be used for bad ends or purposes. And maybe we can pause here for a moment. Happiness, right? Can happiness be used for bad ends or purposes? Why isn't happiness the good in itself? Why is it the goodwill? Any takers? Any ideas for how we could refute that position? And again, we come back to the very good point Genet made in the very first class, and that is that people have different values and societies have different cultures. And what gives happiness in one culture, in a different culture, is not guaranteed to do so. We also have no way of judging between these two cultures, because then you need a third culture, which is objective. And you stand in this objective third culture to judge the other two cultures, but who judges your culture, right? You get stuck in this loop. And so happiness is one of these things. What is happiness? It depends, right? Culture to culture, group to group. The goodwill, though, right? Does this depend? I mean, if you intend to do good, whatever that means may be something else, but the intention there, I want to do this because I think it's a good thing to do, that doesn't depend on culture. Of course, once you start acting, it depends, but the motivation, what drives the ethical impulse, the goodwill, says Kant, is that. This leads us to, okay, what does a goodwill do? Let's say I have a great will. I woke up today, I'm feeling really good-willed. I just want to go out there and do good stuff because my will today is maximally good. What do I do? Well, my goodwill will act from duty. What is that? What is that duty? What am I talking about? A person embodies a goodwill when they do the right thing because it is the right thing. You have a duty to do the right thing and you want to do this duty. They act out of respect for the moral law. And again here, many people seem to do the right thing, but they do it for weird reasons. And I think of people who do charity and film it and put it on the internet, and then they really, their motivation here is just to feel good about themselves. That's a selfish reason. That's using other people as tools to make yourself feel good about yourself. This is not a goodwill. It seems like you're doing a good thing. You're in the streets, you're giving food to the homeless. Your will is not good. You're not doing what you're doing because it's the right thing to do. And so this is what Kant says the goodwill does and should be doing. We have a duty to exercise our actions such that they conform to the moral law. And then finally, what is the moral law? This is the categorical imperative. Act in accordance with the maxim through which you can will at the same time that it becomes a universal law. In other words, whatever you do, you want to be able to will that what you're doing is a universal law. If I think you should steal now and again when you're hungry, then I think now and again people should be able to steal. If I think that it's okay to cheat a little bit on a test, then I think people should be able to cheat a little bit on tests. And is it logical? Is it possible to will this as the universal law? That is the test Kant gives us. And secondly, the same idea expressed differently. Treat other people always as ends in themselves and never as means. Joseph's example of the Nazi worker who goes to Auschwitz every morning, really likes his job, really good at it, right? He's efficient, really good at his job, takes immense satisfaction. He gets a goal in the morning, he completes that goal by lunchtime, doing the thing, but he's using mass murder and the end of the freedom and dignity of other humans for his satisfaction. That's what makes it so grotesque. The amount of other people being used for your satisfaction and treating others as things, as mere objects like a game or pawns or something. That's what's so absolutely grotesque about this.